Well, I know I said the last time that it'd be like once a month that I would do a mock draft for 2015. Well, I kind of lied. I guess I've changed my mind a little bit. I don't know if you're going to get one every single week, but the urge kind of hit me to do another one after week number 5, so that's what I decided to do. Couple of notes here. Number one, and I'm going to emphasize this again since some of you didn't get it through your skulls the last time. The current draft order is based off of my best estimation according to team records, strength of schedule, seeding in the playoffs, what have you. So if I have the Jets at number 4, or I have your Falcons at number 8, or I have your Bucks at number 3, or your Chiefs at number 11, and it's not just a personal thing of me wanting to put them there. It's because based off of record, strength of schedule, and how the draft order usually works, that's where they're slotted by me at this particular time. So hopefully everybody understands that this time. I've decided to do a little bit more than just the first round. If you look in the description box, you'll see all 32 picks for round number 1 in this mock draft of mine, as well as the first 12 picks of round number 2. You say, why the first 12 picks? Well, at this point in time, I had the Bears picking number 12 in round 1. And without trying to get too cute in terms of the second round draft order, I just kept it simple for me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, matching the order of round 1. The Bears have the 12th pick in round 2, so that's where I decided to stop. So there you go. Now, if you look down below, I will try to explain some of the different things, names also that I see rising and falling as the draft process will continue. Number 1, I have the Jaguars taking an offensive tackle, Andrus Peat from Stanford. I don't particularly like Cedric Ogbuehi. I don't think he's the best offensive tackle in this draft. And I'm not saying necessarily that Andrus Peat is, but I'm looking at the Jaguars, and a lot of people are going to mock them to take defensive lineman, and I think that's stupid. Look, you spent the 3rd overall pick in the 2014 draft on Blake Bortles. You have to help and protect Blake Bortles. And that Jaguars offensive line is terrible. I don't care if you took Luke Jokel number 2 overall in 2013. Flip him to the right side, because to me, I don't think he could play left tackle at the NFL level. Either way, you have to protect the franchise quarterback. Now, if some want to argue and said they would take Todd Gurley here, perhaps I wouldn't argue with them that much. I don't know if I would take a running back in today's NFL number 1 overall, and I don't think any team is going to. But you wouldn't get a whole lot of gripe out of me if you chose to have it that way in your mock draft. But again, I do think a defensive player going number 1 to the Jags would be stupid. I still have the Raiders. I stand by this, taking Mariota at number 2, Derek Carr. If the Raiders finish in the draft position of number 2, would clearly have found out that he's not a franchise quarterback and therefore need a franchise quarterback for a new general manager and a new head coach. When those type of things come into play, then you almost always start off with a quarterback, because you either have a quarterback or you don't in the National Football League. In order to win, you kind of need one, and if you don't have one, you're not going to win a whole lot. Some of you will be surprised by me having Tampa Bay take Shawn Oakman from Baylor, number 3. I fully believe that in the 2014 draft, Lovie Smith really wanted Aaron Donald from Pittsburgh. He wanted that type of player that fit his cover 2 system perfectly. And I look at a guy like Shawn Oakman, and I think he could see a lot of Julius Peppers in him in terms of his size, in terms of his skill set. And Lovie Smith, unlike Tony Dungy, who always kind of preferred the smaller defensive ends that could fly upfield like Freeney and Mathis, Lovie's kind of actually liked bigger defensive ends over the years, and I think Shawn Oakman kind of fits into that profile. He'd love to put him bookend of Michael Johnson, and would also help open up things in the middle for Gerald McCoy as well. I really think Lovie in his next draft would want to go more on the defensive end. I think they actually kind of like Mike Glennon a little bit. But even if they don't, I don't think they would take Connor Cook number 3, and I'm not sure that Lovie would want the distraction of Jameis Winston. He would go in a different direction, and I think the defensive guy is going to want a defensive player. In terms of the Jets at number 4, in this one, I have them taking Jameis Winston. The bottom line is if they finish with a top 5 worst record in the league, that means Geno Smith was a failure. That means Rex Ryan is gone. That might mean Idzik is gone as well. So you have a quarterback that's established. He's not the guy. A head coach that will be replaced with a new one, and potentially a new general manager. Again, equals a new quarterback. If you're the Jets, when was the last time you really, truly had a franchise quarterback? Really, truly. Ken O'Brien was nice, but when was the last time you really, truly had a franchise quarterback? Pennington was solid and never anything more than that. You got to go back to Joe Willie Namath. And if you're the Jets, you have to take this risk. You have to gamble on that upside. You have to gamble on the talent of Jameis Winston. I know it could sound like a disaster sending him to New York, but shit, You got to gamble. You have got to gamble. In terms of players that I expect to shoot up the draft board as the process continues, I think Leonard Floyd, the outside linebacker from Georgia, I look at him and I see a guy with more explosiveness and more upside than both Randy Gregory and Vic Beasley. I look at a guy like Dante Fowler from Florida. I think a guy that equally translates well to the 3-4 and the 4-3. I see this guy. I think he's got tremendous hands, which is very important for a pass rusher. This guy's got explosive speed and quickness. I think he's a top 10 type of talent, especially if a team wants to use him in a hybrid way, like I would have the Atlanta Falcons doing by picking him number 8. In terms of Todd Gurley, I'm still not convinced that Todd Gurley will be a top 10 pick because I think NFL general managers are stupid, and I think they fully believe that the running back position doesn't matter that much. Well, it does. And you see some of the top teams in today's NFL, they have big-time running games. Why not have that? And Todd Gurley is not just a run-of-the-mill talent. He's a special talent. In this case, I have him going number 9 to Minnesota. Seems like a logical choice, and it's perfect value for the Vikings. They're clearly best player available at a position of need. Other players I expect to jump up the draft board as time goes along. Shaq Thompson from Washington. Some people are going to look at him and see him as Shazier, so they're going to want to maybe play him inside in the 3-4. Other teams like my Bears, might look at him as a 4-3 weak side linebacker like the Dolphins would by having them take him number 13. I expect Spencer Drango, from Baylor, the offensive lineman, to jump up because you've got kind of a clear hierarchy, 1, 2, 3 in some order of Peat, Ogbuehi, and Scherff. After that, where's that fourth guy? And usually when you have that clear hierarchy of top 3, offensive tackles, somebody else is going to jump up. And in this case, I've got 3 offensive tackles going by the first 11 picks. Who really benefits is whoever that 4th offensive lineman or 4th offensive tackle could be. In this case, I think it's Drango. Another player that I think is going to jump up draft boards even higher than where I've got him right now is actually 2 of them. Eddie Goldman, the defensive tackle from Florida State, and Kenny White, the wide receiver from West Virginia. I'm surprised more people aren't talking about this kid. He has speed. He has great size. I think he has really good hands. Every time I watch him, it seems like he's massively open, going against man-to-man coverage zone. He has the ability to get himself open, catch the ball, and make big plays with the ball once he's caught it. I think he's a guy that could jump up boards as time goes along. In terms of players I anticipate falling as the process goes along, one of those players I think could be Vic Beasley of Clemson, a tremendous edge rusher, tremendously explosive. But I think he's going to be one of those things that he's a guy that's kind of scheme restricted. Not every team I think that runs a 3-4 is going to view him as an ideal type of 3-4 outside linebacker. They might look at him at like a Jarvis Jones type of player. And then on the flip side, they're going to look at him, maybe some teams will envision him as a 4-3 strong side linebacker. Do they think he's like Von Miller special, where he merits or justifies a high draft pick running a 4-3? I don't know. I think he's a guy that could drop, or Randy Gregory could drop. I really think come draft time that either Randy Gregory and or Vic Beasley will drop quite a bit farther than people anticipate or people are mocking it at this point in time. Another guy that I think is going to drop as time goes along, and I could be called an idiot for this a few months from now, but Leonard Williams from USC. Everybody talks about this guy like he's a top-tier talent. And I see the explosiveness. I see the potential. I see the flexibility in terms of where you could line him up. But I don't think he's a guy with a definitive NFL position. I think he's a guy that flashes to me at times more athleticism than actual solid, consistent play. And, with other linemen for the past few years like Nick Fairley and Daquan Bowers and Michael Johnson and Demontre Moore and Bjorn Werner, guys that were projected very early in their last college seasons to be very, very high draft picks, they all dropped. And I expect this could happen with Leonard Williams as well. Another player that I think is going to drop quite a bit might be Ifo Ekpre-Olumu from Oregon. I don't think he should, but because of his size, where he might barely measure in at 5'9", a lot of teams want a corner that's at least 5'11", if not 6 foot or taller. He's going to be a guy that a lot of teams are going to think is just strictly a slot nickel cover corner type of guy, and as a result, they might not be willing to spend a high draft pick on him. And as a result, he might drop quite a bit as the process goes along. I've got Shalik Calhoun going in the second round from Michigan State. Again, it's one of these things where there's a lot of good outside pass rushers that could play in the 3-4 or hybrid 4-3-3-4 roles, and Calhoun just might not be the best of them, and he might be kind of, second tier. And I think a guy like him could drop because, again, there could be some uncertainty about what position he would play at the NFL level. If you're also wondering about the quarterbacks, in terms of Brett Hundley, I've got him going in the second round. Connor Cook, I've got going to Houston at number 16. I think there is a chance that Cook ends up being the second quarterback drafted. Crazy as it sounds, I still think there's a chance that Connor Cook ends up going above Marcus Mariota. Doesn't always mean that I agree with it when I say these things, but it's still me putting it out there that it is a distinct possibility. I think certain franchises might look at Connor Cook as the most complete and polished passer in this year's NFL draft, the safest of the picks, and definitely safer than a Jameis Winston. In this way, would it surprise me if a Connor Cook went ahead at least of Jameis Winston and Jameis Winston dropped quite a bit in the first round? No, it would not at all. So, like I said, my first round mock and the first 12 picks of round number 2, I've got in the description box down below. You're welcome to chime in. Again, keep in mind that my mocks are a combination of where I think players could end up, where teams could be targeting, things like that. I'm trying to project for the future too. I'm not just trying to go right off of the here and now. So if you're sitting there saying, how the fuck do you have this guy here, you have this guy there? Well, I've kind of tried to explain it a little bit. And like I said, it is only early October. There's still a lot of time left to go. We got, another 6-7 months of this crap? 6.5 months? So I promise you, a lot will change as time goes along, okay?